Welcome everyone, and thanks a lot for joining us today. So if you are here in this webinar, it means either you are planning to do a crowdfunding campaign or you have done a good one or not maybe a very good one, but you have seen how some campaigns are breaking the gate out of the successful ones and how some of the others are not doing so. And today we are going to talk about the long phase before the launch day. And today with us, we have Yeva and Bobcam from TCF side. We have also Heather from Kickstarter. Me, myself, I'm going to host the webinar. I'm head of marketing at TCF team. Let's have a brief introduction of all of our guests, and we'll go ahead.
Shall I start?
Yep.
Great. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Heather Swift Hunt, and I'm Kickstarter's Global Head of Design and Tech. So myself and my team are the sort of experts in product design and hardware working inside of Kickstarter. And we advise and many hardware startups, product designers and inventors of all kinds on how to make their product launches really successful on Kickstarter. That's me.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Heather. Yeva.
Hi everyone, very happy to be here. I am Yeva Gasparian, a project manager at TCF. I have been in crowdfunding more than 5 years already, doing a lot of different campaigns in different industries, having a lot of fun with creators. And as you know, TCF is a crowdfunding agency who is responsible of running very successful marketing crowdfunding campaigns. I'm very happy to share my insights here and would welcome any questions you may have at the end. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Bobkin. I'm Partnerships Manager at TCF, and I help creators in terms of explaining them about the crowdfunding market, about what TCF does. And I have more than 5 years of experience in the crowdfunding market. As Yeva and Heather, I'm really happy to be here and excited for this webinar.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction. For our guests who have just joined the webinar, please make sure that you leave all of your questions that you'd like to be asked to our webinar guests, as well as we have not forgotten that you put some of the questions during the registration form, and we are going to ask them after the main part of the webinar is ended. So across like thousands of campaigns, one pattern shows up again and again that it does not matter that your product is good enough to have it launched successfully. There are some other points that you should take into consideration, which is going long before the launch day. And to discuss this today, for the very first question, I think that Heather will be a perfect guest for us to answer regarding preparation phase. Heather, how does Kickstarter team distinguish whether the campaign is going to struggle after the launch, or how are they likely to get more and more visibility?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I'll say that the pre-launch period is such an important topic. So I'm really happy that we have decided to focus on this today because, everybody thinks about Kickstarter as a place that you go and you launch your campaign and then maybe, loads of strangers on the internet find your project and make it really successful. But actually, the biggest determinant of success on Kickstarter is how much work you've done in pre-launch. Now, that question of like how do we know, whether a campaign is going to be successful or not in that pre-launch period? The short answer is to say that we don't. Nobody does, of course. That nobody has a crystal ball, and even the most experienced creators will. There's some amount of unknown that you just don't know how a product is going to resonate. Kind of like, yeah, how the temperature is of that market or whatever it is. So. That's the beauty of crowdfunding and letting the crowd kind of come out of the woodwork and decide on which products can be most successful. But, we are, of course, like talking to creators all the time at events like this, at, CES, at various incubators and accelerators. And I will say, some of the things that we look out for to determine whether somebody is going to be successful are, first of all, whether they've built an email list. So that's often one of the first questions I'll ask people, because it's a really easy question to ask is, have you started to build an email list and how many people are on that list? If a creator says, yes, I have, 10,000 people on an email list, I have a pretty good idea that they're taking this seriously, doing their pre-launch work and getting ready for launch. But it's not everything, of course, and we can get into that today. But I would say, yeah, email list I'll be looking for. I'll be looking at the team, whether the team have experience. Maybe they're working with an incubator accelerator. If they're working with an agency, we know that a lot of teams who work with agencies are actually, more successful. Of course, we love teams that do it their own as well. And, there's different models for different types of people, but certainly an agency collaboration is a good predictor of success. I'd be looking at the product and seeing, is the product novel? Is it unique? Is it doing something new in the world? Can you tell a story around it?
Yeah.
Because we know that, some products do work better for crowdfunding than others. Like if I have, I often, when I'm doing these, I often have a glass. If I say, if I'm trying to launch a campaign around this water glass, there may be limited things that I can sort of say about it or story that I can tell around it. Whereas if you're launching some innovative new piece of technology that has a lot of unique features, you can tell a bigger story, and that might attract a crowd. There's a passionate crowd of people around the product. And then I'd be looking at their pre-launch materials and seeing like, are they telling the story of their campaign really well so far? Telling the product story really well? Have they started to understand what their product is and how to position it? So those are just like a number of factors. Again, I never know how a product is going to go, but those are the things that I'd be looking for to determine, do I think this person is going to be successful or not?
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Eder, a lot. So, yeah, I totally agree with you that none of us has this crystal magic ball in our hands to understand whether the campaign is going to be successful or not. But there are some people who are getting closer to this crystal magic ball before anyone else, and I think Babken is one of them. So, from your perspective, Babken, what separates a campaigner that feels ready from the ones that feel rushed?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think Heather's answer covered some part of this question as well. But effectively, like whenever there's a new creator that I'm getting in touch with, that I'm trying to understand, okay, what we can do to help them to get to ultimate success in crowdfunding, one of the first things is whether they have started any marketing activities, whether they have started generating a list, whether they have started doing any sort of validation. For me, one of the important things in terms of understanding whether the product is rushed or not is also the level of readiness of the product itself. Like a lot of times creators can come when they already have a fully working prototype or maybe 80%, 90% working prototype. The level of readiness of the prototype of the product itself is also very important. In terms of being rushed or not, as Heather mentioned, if you have a community, if you have email leads, if you have people who are already interested in the product, like it's basically you have a community who's waiting for you to launch the campaign so that they can go and back the project, right? So it's one of the most important things. What I would also add is how well do creators understand their market? How well do they understand their potential customers? In terms of, do they fully understand the potential pain points, the potential, I would say, benefits that are going to be the most exciting and interesting to their community? So I would bring those two things up, as well as, of course, like visuals, whether they have like presentable photos, videos of the product to communicate the product well to the market.
Okay, perfect. So we managed to cover a couple of important components that creators should have before starting their pre-launch phase. And with Yeva, we'd like to talk about common mistakes and mostly, Yeva, if possible, operational ones that creators are usually making that can either reduce the conversion or make some mistakes that will prevent them from having a good early preparation.
Yeah, the mistakes are the ones that can be a lot for sure. And it can be strategic mistakes, operational mistakes, as you also mentioned. One thing that comes to my mind right away in general that I noticed creators may struggle with, and I agree with Heather here that agencies maybe come in handy in these places as well because they have done this like many times and they have definitely a lot of insights and knowledge that can help creators to get even better success. Of course, they can be successful by themselves as well, but I think this is where the agency's multiplier effect comes in kind of with all the insights. I would say the mistake would be maybe starting as simple as prioritization, because sometimes the campaign is huge and there are a lot of directions that you have to work on, and wrong prioritization can make you struggle on the launch day for sure, because you need to understand what are the highest impact activities in order to put all your attention and effort into that first. And sometimes when creators come with, oh my gosh, there is so much happening, I don't know, should I now spend time on reviewing the copy? Should I do the product feature? Should I do the design or whatever? Should I pitch influencers or all of this? So I think especially when they work without agencies, this can be a very tough thing to deal with. And if not done correctly, this mistake can definitely affect and harm your campaign in general. And another operational mistake that I can mention that is again very common is when people start very late, because as other speakers also mentioned, preparations is very, very important. So all the first day success you may see, it actually is the work of all the previous months that you actually put in. And here, why preparation is really important, because it's not just about like having everything done correctly, every detail is carefully thought through and so on. But let's also remember that this preparation time is great time for testings and validations, because creators come with new product, let's say they never showed it to market, or they did the mom test and that's pretty much all, but they really need to do all these testings and validations to understand, let's say, the best pricing, to understand the best positioning and so on. So again, not starting the process early enough can be a mistake that can harm your campaign for sure, because longer time you have, more testings you can do, better insights you can have, and definitely you can have stronger and more confident launch. So starting early and prioritizing correctly would be maybe two things we should pay attention to.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Eva, because doesn't matter whether you are 2 weeks out or you are 2 months out. Like there is one thing that you should keep in your mind. Doesn't matter when you are starting, you need to make your launch day easier, stronger, and kind of more predictable.
Yes,
Uh,
as much as you can.
yeah, sure. So just reminding to all of our participants that they can leave their questions that they want to be asked to our uh, webinar hosts, co-hosts, and guests in the chat section. And moving ahead with like behavior of pre-launch and data. This is something very important to take into consideration, because some of the creators are thinking that data is exactly what the pre-launch behavior is, but these are supposed to be a bit different. And to dive deeper into this, to explain it better, I think Heather can help us a lot. Like what pre-launch behavior correlate more strongly with stronger performance in the first up to 72 hours from a platform date perspective.
Yeah, sure. Well, from a data perspective, first off, I'll say that we sometimes have limited view into the creator's pre-launch period. So when we talk about pre-launch here, just to make sure everyone on the call kind of understands that the Kickstarter campaign is your 30 to 45 or 60-day campaign that, so go on Kickstarter, you press launch, and you tell the world about it. But when we're talking about pre-launch, it's a number of different tactics, whether that's even going to trade fairs and building up your email list in person, or you're making your landing page and starting to A/B test it there, and building your email list, building your social following. So that would be like, there's a lot of different tactics that kind of go into to pre-launch. From us on a platform side, the biggest view that we have into pre-launch data is through pre-launch followers. So Kickstarter has a pre-launch page. It's a pretty robust page. You can go on there and make a page and tell people, hey, follow this project on Kickstarter and sign up for your account and be ready to back the project from day one. We have seen some pretty interesting pieces of data from that have shown that around the conversion rate for pre-launch followers into a campaign is actually around 25 to 35% across categories and project sizes. So that's pretty good. So that means, if you have 100 pre-launch followers on your campaign, the average, not for everybody, but the average is 25 to 35% would convert into campaign pledgers. Now, I talked about email list followers earlier, and we, generally speaking industry, although TCF, I think you're more expert at this than me, but you would say, an email list conversion might be between 1 to 5%. So if you compare that sort of 1 to 5% of people that are, going to convert from your email list versus that 25 to 35% Kickstarter pre-launch followers, that like those are especially motivated people. Those are people that have like, yeah, they've signed up. They're, there's friction involved in like getting there. So they have to be really motivated. Just to quantify that a little bit, I'll say that the conversion for like ads generated followers versus organic is a little bit different. Ads is a bit around 5 or 7% lower. So, if you're using ad traffic to get followers, of course, there's going to be a little bit less than organic. But generally speaking, yeah, we know that like, yeah, pre-launch followers is they're really sticky to your campaign. And then the second point, a data point I'll say, is that we know that also pre-launch followers contribute 9 to 12% of a campaign's total raise, but 16 to 20% of their day one raise. So they're really, really important to that day one momentum. And yeah, it can set the pace for the rest of the campaign. So yeah, as I said, we oftentimes don't have a big view, a long view into pre-launch data. And I know that, TCF, you all do, that's your specialism. But from us, yeah, those are some little points that we're seeing on a data side from the platform.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Heather. So when you are doing pre-launch, actually, Yeva, do you have something to add? Because I see.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Heather's point and also say how important the Kickstarter built-in pre-launch page is also for us, because the first thing we want is always to have that page up, because definitely the followers there are like the hottest audience that we know are just ready for the first day. And also to add to Heather's comment, Kickstarter sends them a message, right, the day when the product is launched. So imagine that these people are getting an additional notification on your first day, so they come to your page to support you. So this is very important. And regarding them being having good reservation rate, I noticed that the conversion rate would be almost the same as with when you do reservations and you like get a small amount of money, which means that again you can get really good conversion rate from the followers as you can get from your reservees. So those are like the hottest people. So more you collect before you launch on Kickstarter platform too, it's going to be much better for you. So definitely get started with that once you start.
Yeah, sure. And another point here to mention is that when you are doing pre-launch, you are mostly paying attention how much subscriptions, reservations, or leads you are like generating in general to go to do your successful launch. But there is another thing to mention here, that pre-launch is very important for the later scaling as well. Let's not forget that later on, when you are launching your campaign, you are going to have some kind of collaboration, some kind of business opportunities and so on, which can be connected with your early preparation. So to understand how, I think Babken can help us to get out how this early preparation make it easier for the creators to open some kind of other doors with potential collaborators, with suppliers, with business opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about starting preparations early, there are lots of benefits to it. And one of the main benefits that I would say you have is that you have more time, right? So if you plan, let's say your pre-launch a month before, and let's say you're starting today, you want to launch in a month. You don't have enough time in case of something doesn't go as planned. You don't have enough time if you want to test a couple of more ideas, if you want to test different price points, different positioning. But if you have more time, you have more time to really dig deep into data, really try and understand who is your ideal customer, what pain points they have, how to target them properly, what kind of advertising strategy to use. Because when you launch on Kickstarter, you're going to think about, how do I scale the campaign? And I would say from our perspective, what we see is kind of one of the best scaling directions, it's advertising. Because if you find one direction that is going to work well, it is relatively easier to scale with that during the short period of time that you're going to be on Kickstarter. So effectively, you early on have more time for doing lots of tests, for understanding the market better. Now, what we also seen from lots of projects that we work with is that a lot of times when you're doing pre-launch, you can find out certain things about your target market. Whether it is that maybe the market is looking for an additional feature, And this is something that we've seen. Like we do the pre-launch, we see that during pre-launch, the subscription rates, the reservation rates are not meeting the benchmarks, are not meeting the numbers. So what you do in those cases, you try to understand why is this the case. So what you can do here is you can look not only at quantitative data in terms of what is the subscription rate, what is the reservation rate, but also into qualitative data. You can start getting connected, getting in touch with your customers early on and try to understand why they are not reserving the product, why they are not showing more love. And just for our visitors to better understand, the subscription and the reservation funnels usually work like this. You have a page where you have all the information about the product. People subscribe if they're interested. Then they see the price, and if they're interested, they can leave a $1, $5 reservation as well. But the idea is to have this two funnel model where first people show interest by subscribing and then they validate the price. So what you can do is you can speak with these people, you can send surveys to these people to understand what is stopping them from leaving the reservation. And in some cases, it can be additional feature. So if you want to add a feature, it's not something that you can do in a day or two. So you might want to go back to your supplier. You maybe want to find new suppliers to be able to add the feature that your customers want. That is going to improve the potential of your project. Or another case can be where you do the pre-launch and you see that the market is not willing to pay the price. Like, again, this is something that we see often where you have a product that has good market interest. People are genuinely interested in it, but they think that the price is too high. So in this case, you're going to think about how can I cut costs? How can I maybe lower the price? How can I go maybe with a cheaper manufacturer to be able to accommodate the drop in pricing? And of course, it also gives you time to set up some of the other parts, whether it is the campaign page creation, whether it is getting in touch with influencers, getting in touch with journalists, because during the campaign, you want to get as much exposure as possible. You have 30 to 45 days of being live on Kickstarter, right? You want to make sure that you're utilizing this time well enough. So if you have 3 months, 4 months, 5 months to prepare for the campaign, you can get in touch with a lot more journalists, with a lot more influencers, and you can organize a lot more promotions for the project. So in terms of what benefits it can give you with partnerships, I would say definitely PR and influencer marketing side of things, you have more time for proper preparations. And of course, if there are any changes that need to be made to the product, you have the time to work around it.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Babken. As you already drove us to the reservation funnel, we already have potential leads. Let's go on with Yevan to understand when we already have these leads. How can we use this early testing or rehearsal or kind of say internal validation of assets that can affect backer trust and conversion on the launch day?
So from whatever Babken basically mentioned regarding the early pre-launch knowledge, right, that you get, from my experience, I would say that a lot of the decisions that we make for the live stage actually come from the pre-launch data, because the validations and the testings that I also mentioned before, these all help us to understand how to best even structure the page, as small things as like the structure of the page, till the reward strategy, till the PR outreach pitches, and all of these can come from your early testings. Because first of all, you do like a mini real life scenario of what your Kickstarter campaign can most likely look like. So you create this kind of environment that seems like the real one when you launch, meaning that you bring in real people to see your product, to answer your questions, and also you communicate with your potential buyers to understand how to best do the messaging and the positioning for your Kickstarter. What I have experienced, for example, even talking with the people in early stage regarding what features they like the most, for example, or what add-ons they can most likely want to have. These very strategic questions helped creators and us as marketing team to better position our product for Kickstarter. Add-ons are a big thing. I'm sure you know about them, that the platform allows to have, which can help you to increase your average order value a lot. So many creators have no idea what possible add-ons they can come up with their product, but then this community helps them so much to understand this and be prepared and launch with very good add-ons as well, let's say. Also, another thing that is very useful when you know your community and what they are concerned about, because not we don't just ask what they love the most about
Mhm.
products, but we also ask what concerns they may have. Once you launch on Kickstarter, you already know this in your head, and you structure everything in a way that when they come to, let's say, read your page, you answer their questions before they write. So before they can come up with a concern, you already answer them on your page, which gives a lot of credibility because viewers feel like, okay, these guys know what's happening. So you definitely build a lot of trust in them, and also you are able to convert them better. And maybe the last thing that helps us a lot regarding because you mentioned visuals as well, Arthur, I think, when it comes to the visuals, when you understand, let's say, different products actually in ads, in paid advertising, and have different kind of content that converts best. So imagine you're live in Kickstarter and you have to yet figure out what content performs best to go and create more of that content in order to put it in your ads and scale. But imagine if you know this before the launch, so you just scale without losing time and resources. And honestly, it can be very different from product to product. Let's say for one product, UGC style videos and explanatory videos do a great job. For the other product, maybe banners are doing great, let's say. So all this testing that you do beforehand just gives you insights to prioritize things and put your effort into a very effective direction, so you don't like lose time and efforts doing things that may not be important, let's say. So I would say these things are just super important for the launch of the campaign. That's why I can't emphasize enough how important these testings are before the first day.
Yeah, indeed. Like there are a lot of factors that you can always mention what's important. Most of the creators are concentrating on the number of potential backers that they can have, but later on, when you are doing this early stage preparation very successfully, your campaign spike is not falling down during your crowdfunding campaign. Later on, you are having your potential advocates. And jumping to the next question for Heather, it's about the creators who can give themselves an extra, for example, 60 days to prepare. Where does Kickstarter see the biggest measurable advantage compared to late stage campaigns?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to answer. I do just want to say actually, yeah, in terms of testing, just to come on to that, I have an example actually. I spoke to a creator some time ago who was about to launch a sleep device, and they really tested in the beginning just their tagline. So for when they first came to me, the tagline they were using was this is like your AI sleep companion. And to me, the feedback I gave was like, okay, well, maybe that's not very specific. Like, what is AI doing? What is a companion? Like, what does that mean? And so they said, oh, well, our other tagline was like something like a smart alarm clock to help improve your morning or something. But they didn't want to box. They're like, oh, it's not an alarm clock. It's more than an alarm clock. But for me, I was like, I think that being specific is probably better. But you know what? I don't know. Test it. A/B test that tagline in your pre-launch, whether it's through social or through your pre-launch page or whatever, and then see what it is. And it turns out that yes, even though it's more than an alarm clock, like being more specific actually had a much better engagement. So again, this is just to underline that with an example, Yeva's point. Anyway, to answer the question about like if you find yourself, I think this is nobody ever finds themselves with extra time before pre-launch. But if you happen to find yourself, you have everything done, you have another 30 or 60 days, where to spend it? Well, probably, yeah, on community building. So when I say that, basically before launch, there's really like three buckets of preparation that you're going to be doing. The first one is around essentially your prototype manufacturing plan, making sure that you're all buttoned up for fulfillment, you know what your costs are, your reward price. Like that stuff is usually what teams are expert at. That's like what you guys do best is like, your product, but making sure that, you're ready to go, and lock in all of those details during the campaign. That's the first bucket. The second bucket is your campaign page and your video, your assets, all of your copy. that takes some time to put together. And again, you want to test it and all of these things. But you can sprint on that. You can get it done pretty quickly. But the third, bucket is really that community building. So, building the pre-launch email list, getting your social followers, getting your Kickstarter followers. And that takes the longest time. Like, I think most people think that, Kickstarter is all about building your page, building your product and then building your page. But actually the community part of it is by far the thing that kind of takes the longest. And it's the hardest, I think, for a lot of founders who are really, they love building products, they love making things, but then when it comes to actually launching, how do you get followers and get people to back it? So, I think just getting organized for their campaign outreach, like, pre-writing, segmenting their lists, like planning their content, pre-writing emails, doing as much as you can to just, build that follower list, I think is the most important thing. And actually the reason why creators might extend their launch date. Actually, they might think they're going to launch in 1 month. They extend it to 2 months or 3 months because they need more time to do the community.
Yeah, indeed. Thanks a lot, Heather. And as you already mentioned about the campaign page, I think that here I have something a bit different for Yeva. A question like beyond the campaign page itself, what internal processes or maybe systems differentiate the campaigns that scale effectively from those who plateau?
Honestly, the campaign page is probably the one of the smallest things that may contribute to the big scale when we talk about. Of course, it has its place, and again, the way you structure it and the way you tell your story all comes from all these testings and the validations you have done. When it comes to like scaling to big numbers, there are different things that play a big role. Of course, the paid advertising plays a big role because ads are one of the biggest sources that bring just direct sales. We all know this, but for scaling in ads, you still need some good conditions, let's say. Your costs should be definitely healthy enough to be able to scale. So let's say you do have the ideal environment that your costs are good and you have the availability to scale. I think here, then you need to really pay attention on how you do the scaling of the ads and what scaling strategies you use. I would say that you really need to pay attention to your segments and also the content that you create for your ads. Let's say you have the cold interest, right? And then you have retargeting ads, for example. So each segment should have a very tailored approach. That's how like we do at TCF and I use it in my practice. Let's say for retargeting, you better concentrate on some credibility kind of content, some offers, some milestone updates. So create content that will be better fit for the retargeting. For your cold audience, definitely create some introduction kind of posts or videos to tell about the product and get their interest. So for the scaling of all your campaign, I would say for ad scaling specifically, these are some things you can concentrate on. Another big direction that contributes to your scaling is usually influencer marketing and PR, because again, those are very strong directions that can bring a lot of new traffic to you. And as Babken mentioned before, starting the preparation for these two directions before the launch is crucial because you need to usually send samples to these influencers, which takes time. It has to arrive to the influencer, they need to do the review, and then you confirm it, and then they post it. So it's a whole process that you really need to start before the launch. And have in mind that these two directions can bring you a lot of traffic. And in the case of PR, if it's not paid PR, right, it's for free, the ROI is also very good. So you definitely want to concentrate also on these directions where you don't put money in, but you can potentially bring a lot of sales. So big influencers and big media talking about you definitely contributes to your scaling. And maybe the last part in the scope of scaling that is very crucial is the community. As Heather mentioned, community building is very important, but not just before the launch, but actually after the launch, your backers are also community which you can utilize. So let's say you have 2,000, 3,000 backers already, you're live. You can maximize and kind of use that resource to bring in even more people. So community management doesn't stop once you launch. You should keep doing the community management with your leads and reservations during the live, but also with your backers. You can easily do giveaways or referral programs with them and use that resource to bring in more people. And that's, again, a very good scaling strategy, because it's the best way when your customers promote your product. So they kind of start being the ambassadors and sellers. So if you're a good creator, motivated, giving them updates, keeping them posted, being honest and transparent, this backer community can be a very, very useful source for you to scale. So yeah, that would be my insights.
Yeah, very important insights actually to take into consideration when you are preparing for your launch day. But there are endless things to do here. And beyond these endless things, there is something that a lot of creators can actually think, should I give everything away while doing pre-launch? All the details, maybe I should hold something back. Who knows? Babken, can you help me with this?
Babgen,
Oh,
tell the
love
truth.
to.
Tell the truth.
This is something that I've seen a lot of creators struggle with, where do I really want to put out all the information about the product, right? Like in some cases, it can be because you don't want potential competitors to learn about the product. You don't want them to know about all of the features of the product. Or maybe you want to have a big reveal, right? Like you don't reveal everything, and then during the campaign day, you're revealing all at once. Um, I definitely can see some creators going with that direction, but I would say that in my experience and with the experience that we've seen at TCF, it is very important to gather really correct data, really accurate data. And when we're talking about pre-launch, when we're talking about testing the product, when we're talking about testing the features of the product, a lot of times the feature that you want to hide or that you don't want to talk about can be what makes people to subscribe to your product, can be the thing that makes your potential customers to fall in love with your product. And at the same time, if you're not showing all of that information, you're effectively hindering the performance of your product, and then you're going to be again second guessing. How big of an impact will this new feature that I didn't talk about during pre-launch have on my actual launch? So at that time, you're going to be again second guessing. Will this work? Maybe this will not. What kind of impact it will have? In addition to that, for people to be able to subscribe and for people to be able to reserve the product or to click on notify button on Kickstarter, they need to see something worthy. They need to understand the product. So if you don't understand the product, if you don't fully grasp, why would you leave a reservation? Why would you leave your email address if you don't fully understand what this is and what are you leaving your email address for? So my suggestion to creators has and always will be, unless you have any concerns with patents, definitely show all of the information. Definitely make sure that people fully understand what the product is. If there are some things that you haven't patented, that are patent pending, and you don't want to kind of lose the potential advantage that you're going to have in the market, I would say that it would probably be better to finalize everything and then start the whole process. Because if you start with a half-ready product and you don't show all of the features, you might get data that is not accurate. You might get data that suggests that the product is not going to perform well. Well, it's only because you're not showing the full potential of the project. So that would be my 2 cents on that. So yeah.
So don't hold anything back if you want to have a successful launch day as well as to scale later successfully.
Yeah. And one more thing I would bring up is that people a lot of times, and not as many recently, but I remember like during the last 2 years, I've heard a lot from creators. What if someone what if someone copies my product, right? Like this is something that to a certain extent you can avoid. To a certain level you can defend yourself from, but at some point, once you're already in the market, there are definitely going to be copycats. So you really need to start building this community early so that people are starting to get in love with the brand, with the product, and moving forward, you already have loyal customers, and that can help you survive later on and flourish later on, even if though there are people selling a copied product that you build. But there are going to be those people who were the first to discover you, who take a pride in the fact that they were the first people to see the product, who were the first people to back this on Kickstarter, and they're going to become your loyal customers.
Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Babken. Like those are golden words to take into our notes. And as we already started to talk about the success of pre-launch stage, how it should look like, moving with Heather, I'd like to ask how this structure and readiness of a campaign page weeks before the launch influence how your team, Kickstarter's team, predicts the success.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there are many things that I think we covered here, already. I would say that, yeah, just testing the images, testing the product positioning, and really like, starting to implement that onto the campaign page is going to be the most important thing. Like just doing all of that testing in pre-launch, or whether it's on your own pre-launch page or on your own socials. Again, coming back to that sleep example that I used, it's also not just the taglines, but the images. Maybe it's you have one image of the alarm clock that is, on a pedestal, with a white background, really Apple style, versus one that's like a more lifestyle image with a person, on the side of the bed. And you want to know which one is going to be your main image. Now, I would tell you that the lifestyle one is going to be better, because that is more Kickstarter style, that's more authentic. We think that it's, important. But I do always say, this is my opinion, but test it, put it out onto social, onto your pre-launch pages, and see which one is getting more clicks, more engagements, more views, however you measure it. So I think, yeah, there's just so much that you can do, as we've already said, in pre-launch to kind of test that stuff, so that when you're implementing on the campaign, you're not like on the back foot, underlying much of what Yeva advised.
Yeah, exactly. And Yeva, when we prepare all of our activities and we already have the results, how can we make sure that these are not just for a short period and these are going to take the whole campaign?
That's a very good question, because we have been talking about the first day, first 3 days, but honestly, once that first day or first 3 days end, that's where the hard part also begins. Because if you prepare really hard for these 3 days for months, you really need to understand that after these 3 days, there is this challenging time to keep the momentum, because having the momentum is challenging, but trust me, keeping the momentum going is even harder. So that's a very good question when it comes to the overall campaign duration, to make sure that your preparations are not just for the first days. I would say you really need to remember and pay attention to some key things that usually happen, at least in my practice, I notice for the campaigns. The mid stage of the campaign is usually when you get the lowest kind of performance, because the first part is really big. You get a lot of people that they come and support you. And then the last days are usually very active with really high ROI, because you have scarcity. There are just few days left. So this mid campaign part is the part when creators get the biggest challenges, and us as well in the marketing agency. That's why we plan everything beforehand for these mid-campaign challenges as well. So let's say simple things as strategically planning your influencer marketing postings, let's say. Before the launch event, you try to differentiate and have different posts at different stage of your live campaign. And you know that in mid-campaign, you need this new traffic, new kind of activity going on. So you can plan accordingly to have, let's say, 5 influencer posts within 2 weeks during your mid-campaign stage, in order not to lose the momentum, let's say. So definitely having these strategies planned for the whole campaign duration before the launch is really important. Another exercise that we do, that I would again recommend everyone to do for the campaign whole duration, is the risk management, risk mitigation session, which you do before the launch, trying to go over all the possible challenges that you may face during the live stage, to have potential solutions for them, to assign some people who is responsible when something like this happens. And this again helps you to be ready for the whole campaign itself, not just like the first days. That's really helpful. And maybe I would say having plan A, B, C always, no matter what, in all marketing directions. So when we plan something, let's say it's a PR outreach, we have plan A, which covers this interest of the media, but then we have the plan B of, okay, if we don't get enough attraction from here, or we use all of this, what's the second direction we're going to go in, and the third direction, and so on, which goes to any kind of marketing direction that we have, with ads, influencer marketing, email marketing. So you always need to kind of have this plan B and C in order to be successful during the whole live campaign as well.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Eva. So I see that we are having a lot of questions, like really, really
Keep up with the
cool
chat.
questions, a lot. And I already see that Heather is taking some of them and
Initiative.
answering them directly, which is great. You're helping me a
Just
lot
the quick ones,
because
yeah.
yeah, we have a lot of them. And I think that we should dedicate some time from now to go over the questions that our participant asked before, and those are really, really good ones. So the first one, I think, uh, is for Yeva. This is from Lucas Lee. He
Mhm.
asked, how can we validate if a product's price point will be well received by the market prior to a Kickstarter launch?
Mm-hmm. Luca, right? Thank you very much
Lucas,
for the
yes.
question. That's a very good question and a challenging one. So, what I would suggest you to do before the Kickstarter launch, when you launch with a specific price, try to do some price validation test in your website, or you can use prelaunch.com, which we use all the time, to basically bring your traffic to the page so they see your product page first, and then after understanding your product features, and leave an email which shows their interest in your concept first. Show them a page with reservation, which you tell them, let's say, to reserve with a small deposit, and show them a price. Let's say leave a small $3 deposit for this price, and see how many of your subscribers actually end up reserving. So that ratio, your reservation rate, will show you if people who love the product, are they ready to also pay that price. So that rate will show you, let's say, if 0.1% reserve from the subscribers, then they are definitely not ready to pay that much for your product. I would say the benchmark would be around 2.53% from your subscribers to reserve. If you get that number, then most likely your pricing is doing well. And you can do different prices, change it, do A/B testing, and come to that best price that people are ready to pay. I hope I answered your question and helped.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lodieva. I'm trying to filter out a couple of questions to go ahead the meantime. So the next one, I think Heather is the best suiting person to answer here. What's the best time in the year to launch a crowdfunding campaign? Or is there one at all? We are getting this from by Stella Pahinis.
Sure. Actually, there's not really. The only time that I would recommend is to avoid is Christmas, the Christmas period, because that's a time when if you're running ads, ad spend is really expensive, and it's just people are looking to buy things now rather than back for something they might receive in some months. But besides that, we actually have seen, again, from a platform data perspective, that the average pledge conversion across most all of our other months, including the summer months, is kind of similar. It's not exact, but it's very, similar. So we do have fewer campaigns that launch in let's say August, but they do just as well as campaigns at any other month. The only other timing that I would say is like avoid launching on a holiday month. Like for example, avoid like launching on a July 4th Monday or something like that. Like you don't want to launch your campaign on big holiday days. And you also want to launch your campaign on a weekday rather than a weekend. Typically, people are browsing while they're supposed to be working or when they're at their desks and, already rather than, out with their families on the weekend.
Just maybe to quickly add on this,
Sure.
can also look at the seasonality. Just Heather, from my experience working with, like, let's say outdoor products, right? So you can look at the seasonality of your product, because if it's a winter product, definitely I have the mindset of needing that winter product more during winter. Than when it's summer, I don't even think of having a hot, like, warm jacket. So you can just pay attention to that seasonality a little bit too.
Just just to add my couple of cents on this as well. The seasonality part, what Eva mentioned, in terms of whether it's a winter product, whether it's a summer product, it's a bit counterintuitive, because ideally you think, so if it's a summer product, it would be best for people to buy it in winter, so that by the time you manufacture the product, by the time you deliver the product, it's already summer and they can use it. Unfortunately, that's not how like the consumer behavior works. And the way it works is people buy product impulsively. So it's summer now, it's hot out now. If I'm looking for a summer product, if I'm looking for something right now, that's when I'm going to back it. So in those cases, if it's a summer product, it's better to launch in summer. If it's a like winter related product, like if it's a ski board or something like that, definitely I would say that winter would be best. And then I think Heather covered it mostly for when it is not like a seasonal product. So yeah.
But here I have a question about your answer. If, for example, I have winter product, doesn't it make any sense to launch it during the summer so that people receive it during the winter if they are baking?
Yeah, that's what Bob said in the
That was the
beginning. No,
counterintuitive.
that's not how
Like
it works, Arthur.
logically,
Join
that's how.
our marketing team. But yeah, it's
Okay.
usually the opposite.
Yeah. So if you started Babken, then the next question is for you. It's by Joanna or Joanna Derehailo. What are, in your opinion, the most important elements of a successful campaign? Can you identify it beforehand?
Well, thanks a lot for the question, Johanna, and sorry if Arthur and I mispronounce your name. So the question was, what are the most important parts that determine the success of the campaign?
Yeah, elements that are
Yeah.
the most important ones.
I would say, as we were speaking, right, like proper preparation, this is kind of laying the foundation of the campaign. It's kind of doing the homework to be ready for the big test, for the big crowdfunding test. So I would say pre-launch and preparation is, in my opinion, by far the most important part that is going to either make or break the campaign. So if you do your preparations right, if you build a community, if you work with that community close enough, if you do proper testings in terms of pricing, positioning, strategies, in that case, you will be able to have a successful campaign. For the second point, I would also like to mention the experience that you have, the experience that you and your team have, maybe the experience that your mentors have, the experience that the agency that you're working with, because Kickstarter campaign has a lot of, I would say, working parts, and it's a very dynamic process. You're going to face a lot of challenges, and you need to have a team who's going to be able to take care of those challenges and to make sure that the project goes smoothly. So it can be your internal team, it can be agency, it can be a consultant, it can be someone who has done this before and who knows how to handle things when they don't go according to the plan. Because trust me, even if you do all the preparations during the campaign, there can be 1 or 2 times where you think, okay, how do we get out of here, right? And the third thing I would say is having genuinely good and innovative product, because crowdfunding, Kickstarter, we're talking about innovative products. If you have a product that is solving problems, if you have a product that is making people's life easier, it's also going to hugely contribute to you having a successful campaign.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Babken. And the next one is from Sarah Zhang. I think, Yeva, this question is for you. It's a very good one. Reviewing the quality of your VIP list, plus how to measure community engagement for launch.
That's a very good question. She said reservists, right? So basically,
Yeah, VIP, yeah, reservists.
Okay, because VIPs are more people you can rely on more than just the leads, because they already showed some kind of commitment. If you want to do an extra round of validation for them, you can get some signs from different call to actions that you can send to your VIPs. And also the email marketing open rates can be a good indicator. Let's say you're sending emails. If they are not opening your emails well, then most likely they may not be ready on the launch day too, or they have some quality issues. Or you can, let's say your VIPs can be collected in a WhatsApp group or some kind of community you can build around them. So you can send them call to action to say, join this place, and you see if many people join, then they are excited, they are good quality. If they are not very engaged, then most probably you have an issue there.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lodieva. Heather, I think you can help us with the next question from Zach Kulogli. The question is about the landing pages. Do landing pages work anymore? How to build traction? Maybe this is about the crowdfunding landing page itself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure actually if it was because yeah, there's landing pages that you do, on your own. You might build your own landing page and send your traffic there versus the Kickstarter page. Maybe just to help to say that the Kickstarter page is important, as we've talked about. Those followers can be really important, but I tend to recommend that you do your own landing page first because there you can collect the email addresses. You keep those email addresses. You can do more with the page. You can like A/B test things like. Typically, but for most campaigns, I would say they would send traffic to their own landing page first to collect the email address and then use Kickstarter for an extra piece of engagement. So, you tell those engaged followers to back it there. And actually, the Kickstarter pre-launch pages are it's a pretty, I would say it's a relatively new feature. Certainly, we're adding more complexity to it all the time. So I would say, yeah, it's really effective as an additional piece of engagement, not as your first one or your only one. But if you were talking about your own personal landing pages, yes, most campaigns that I speak to they're using their own landing pages first to collect email addresses.
Okay, thank you a lot, Heather. The next question I think is for everyone. Is by Kyle Stott. Do you think a project can work if you don't have a good or big pre-launch stage? Like this is something to kind of summarize the meeting and to tell whether not having it can bring good results. I think we can go ahead with Yeva, followed by Heather, and then followed by Popken.
I would say it would be very challenging. So most likely it's more of a no than yes, because the first launch is very important, like the first day of your launch, because it also has this effect of bringing more people if you have a successful launch. And for that, you definitely need this pre-launch list community already built. So once you launch and you don't have that momentum, really, it's going to be really hard for you to pick up the momentum from the middle of your campaign. So it's really, really a big challenge. So I would say if you do really want a very big campaign, then 110% have a good pre-launch stage.
For me, I would say, first of all, it depends on how much you're trying to raise. So, if you're looking to raise 5K or 10K or something like that, and you just want to go for it and graft really hard in those 30 to 60 days, then of course you can just go ahead and do it, or maybe do a minimal pre-launch. So it definitely depends on how much you're looking to raise. And then the second thing I'll say is that, there are always exceptions to the rule. I definitely have worked with founders who have, they just have a really big organic community around them, or it tends to be that profile. It's like somebody who's got a really good organic presence online already, and they just are like, I don't want to do this pre-launch business. I'm just going to launch, and then their community just goes crazy for it. For example, we had a project from a guy called the Hacksmith that launched on Kickstarter with this project, the Smith Blades. I was telling them to do pre-launch. They were like, no, we're just going to launch. But the guy has 20 million YouTube followers. So then they could do this $14 million campaign off the back of no pre-launch. So it does happen, but I would say the more you do in pre-launch, the more you do to build your audience. I frame it like and I think Yeva said this too, it's like you're de-risking your campaign. So it's like you can just launch and see how it goes. But if you want to be more sure, if it's more important to you, if you know that you have to reach a certain number and that's really, really important, then everything you do in pre-launch will de-risk that launch.
Yeah. I 100% sign under what Heather and Yeva said. Just a couple of things to add there. There are always going to be these products where somehow they go viral. Out of nowhere, they go viral, right? Like of course, as the times are moving forward, going viral is becoming more difficult. So as Heather said, if you're doing pre-launch, you're de-risking the campaign. And what I would even go as far as to say is that even if you launch without any pre-launch and you see some sort of success, I'm 100% sure that if you did some proper preparations, if you looked into more into who is the ideal customer, what are their pain points, how to target them in the most efficient and effective way, you would end up with a much bigger and much more successful campaign. And again, this goes to Heather's point, like, what do you really want out of this? Are you looking forward to just put it out there and see how it works? Then it can be an approach that works for you. But if you really want to understand the market, if you really want to make sure that you're maximizing the returns on the product, that you're getting the best version of your product, I think doing pre-launch is going to be necessary. And one thing I would also like to mention is that creators always love their products. Creators are always, in many cases, in love with their products. And doing pre-launch is not devaluing the trust that you have in your product. It's allowing you to make it a better version of your product. So yeah.
Thank you very, very much for all of the answers. Actually, we have, oh, I already see that Heather answer to that question, which is pretty good because we are running out of time. I was trying to understand how we can manage this. Thank you very much for a very, very wonderful conversation and all the insights, and to all of our amazing participants who are posing their great questions, and hopefully we answered as much as we could. And if you have any further questions that remained unfortunately unanswered, we are going to send you a follow-up email where you can contact us and we can discuss all of those questions later. And to sum up the webinar, just one last thing from our hosts and guests, one last advice to all of the creators and all of the potential creators who are now here. Yeva?
I would say trust your gut feelings, keep working hard on your product, but never underestimate the data and the market reaction to your product.
Me, I would say talk to people. Product positioning, I think, is really, really important. How you talk about, again, going back to this like sleep product that I was talking about before, how you talk about it is really important. And you can only do that if you start talking to people, whether it's online or in person, going to an event. Talk to your users, really understand them. It can help with positioning.
Yeah, what I would say is try to understand your customers, and I think this is very strongly connected to what Heather is saying. Like, try to understand them, try to understand what their pain points are, whether it is talking with them, whether it is sending surveys, whether it is meeting them in person. Try to understand who they are, what they need, and you're going to have a good campaign.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, our wonderful guests and our wonderful participants. To all of our participants, make sure you stay in touch because we are going to have some other webinars where we are going to cover some other topics during the launch stage for the scaling systems and so on. But for now, I think this is it, and you are going to receive links for the recording of the webinar where you can rewatch everything and discover some new stuff maybe after watching. And if you have any further questions regarding the pre-launch stage or for the collaboration, we'll send you contacts to be in touch. Thank you very, very much and have a very wonderful day ahead.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.